I'm Sam Baer, car guy in chief at Class Winners Collector Vehicles. And you know what Jeremy Clarkson said on Top Gear? You can't be a true petrol head until you've owned an Alfa Romeo. And that's exactly what I am right now, a true petrol head. So this is a 1978 Alfa Romeo Spider 2000 Veloce. It's the second series of the Alfa Spider that went an amazing 28 years, from 1966 to 1994. It's just super cool, and it's fun to drive. You know, it's not just the driving dynamics that made this Alfa Spider so successful over its 28-year run. It's also that it's beautiful. It was designed by Pininfarina and actually also built by Pininfarina in their facility with a lot of Alfa parts. Now, originally ours had a boat tail, and then for the Series 2, it got the cam tail, the cut-off cam tail, originally with chrome bumpers, but soon we got these black rubber bumpers, and they're fairly heavy, and the chrome bumpers may be a slightly better look because they're a little more tucked in and a little bit more pure. But in the Series 3 cars, they got an entirely new nose and a lip spoiler in back, which was kind of boy racer and added weight. And then for the Series 4 cars, you actually had color-coded front and rear extended sections, which was kind of a new face on an old body. But still, as beautiful as this car is, it's also functional. It's got spacious interior and a great trunk, but really where it's at is driving it. So let's go do that. Now, there are some slight eccentricities about the Spider, and one of those is starting. The best way to start an Alfa is to just turn the key, let the fuel pumps prime, and then go. Don't touch the pedal or it'll flood. At least these fuel-injected cars with a Spica mechanical fuel injection, there's a little plunger there, and it's gonna make it a little richer and then slowly pull itself back so it's running normally. But if you try to put your foot on there, well, it's just going to cause it to stall. After a while, the RPMs will normalize and the idle will be right where you want it. After that, well, you just kind of go. All right, let's test it. Rolling acceleration. You know, for 111 horsepower, this feels downright high-performance sports car. I mean, this engine is just so beautiful. I mean, it's actually exquisite. And in this 78, it's a just under 2-liter version of the tried and true dual overhead cam inline 4-cylinder that had been appearing in Alfas for quite some time. I mean, a total gem of an engine. It's not going to win any stoplight drags with a Corvette, but it will beat plenty of Porsches and Fiats and any British car. Now, US spec cars, starting in the late 60s, received the Spica fuel injection. That's a mechanical fuel injection. It's basically a converted diesel pump. And despite what you might hear to the contrary, they're very reliable. Now, in later cars in the 80s, they went to a Bosch system. Handling in the Alfa is really good. It's actually an independent front and a live rear axle, but it handles really well because it's a unitized body, and it was designed specifically for canyon carving. And I'll tell you, this thing just feels great. There's a lot of feedback through the steering wheel, and you hit these tight corners, little heel toe, and wow, it just feels so good. Oh God, that's fun. When you're talking braking, you've got four-wheel discs all around, and the pedal feel is a little light at first, but then it grabs in. And I mean, I'll tell you, those are just anchors. Inside the Alfa, it's a great place to be. The first thing you notice is the Italian gorilla seating position. I got bent knees, my arms totally out, but unlike most Italian cars, there's actually plenty of legroom. I don't feel cramped. And that's nice, because almost any other car of this size from Italy, I'm just fighting for extra legroom. Seats are fairly comfortable. Now, these are not original Alfa seats in here, but they're very similar. It's easy to get everything. Clutch is easy to get to, brake, accelerator, and of course this awesome gearbox. I mean, this is an Alfa signature, this diagonally canted 5-speed shifter. And it's long, but it doesn't feel long. It's just kind of weird, but it just feels so cool, and you instantly know that you are in an Alfa. Besides how it's placed, it's the fifth gear. You can throw it into fifth gear and it just will give you long legs up to over 100 miles an hour. There's a heater, there's great gauges, these canted gauges with fuel, oil pressure, and water temperature, easy to read, speedo and tack, although I will admit, for me, the steering wheel goes right over the top, but luckily, it's not covering anything I really need to see. In terms of reliability, Alfas get a little bit of a bad rap. You see, when compared to their contemporaries, they're actually not all that bad. In fact, they're pretty par for the course. There are some certain things that are, well, let's just say you gotta look out for. This speaker system is pretty reliable because there's not much to go wrong, but one of the things that does tend to fail is not a deal killer, and that's the fuel cutoff micro switch. It's basically there so that when you raise full throttle, go high RPMs, and then quickly lift your foot, it cuts off the fuel so that no extra fuel goes into the system and causes a little backfire. Now, you'll find on most cars that switch has gone bad, and it requires you to actually pull the whole fuel injection unit to replace it. It's better just to leave it off, and it's not working on this car. I've got a spare switch, but it doesn't need it. A few pops, well, it just makes it sound like a race car. So why have Alfa prices been historically so low on these, 70s and 80s and 90s spiders? Well, they made about 95,000 of them, and 22,000 of them were these Series 2 fuel-injected cars, so there are plenty of them out there. But a lot of them were abused, so most of the ones that you see come up, well, they're not always in the best of condition. And like a lot of less expensive sports cars, they continue to get neglected. But well-sorted ones already start to come back up in value. So where you used to be able to get them for, you know, $4,000, now they're $12,000 to $16,000 for a lot of these. And don't forget, when these things were new, they were over $9,000 in 1978. That put it squarely in line with a base Corvette and a BMW 320. So this was never cheap. This is really a car that would be a fun track day car, because there's plenty of performance to bring you out of corners, and there's almost no body roll. I mean, this is a great sports car. Jeremy Clarkson was right. You can't be a true petrol head unless you've owned one of these things. And sure, everybody likes to poke fun at Italian reliability. And yes, these cars do have a habit of rust, but not any more than any of the British cars or really any of the American cars that aren't fiberglass. So look for one that has had its rust repair done. But if it's got a little bubbling, who cares? It's still gonna drive great. This is just such a fun car.